Geraldo Rivera, our traveling correspondent.
Because he loves me. It's because he loves me.
Every time Geraldo comes on and we fall in love.
We like that.
Did you see the video of Brian tackling?
I actually like that idea. Where kids don't get broken up.
It's genius. They just got to, they could
better
do
than
this
putting
with
away
soccer,
football.
lacrosse, because with soccer, especially you used to play soccer, then you knock heads. If you're going through traffic with a dummy coming at you, you can't get hurt, but yet you're learning the technique.
You know what my favorite part of that was?
What?
Ainsley saying, you know, I've got a 3-year-old looking to get into Dartmouth.
At the end, yeah.
And he accepted her.
You can never start too early.
When I resigned from Yale, the Yale Fellowship, because they changed the name and I thought it was political correctness and inappropriate, my wife was so mad at me. Says, now where's Sol going to go? Now you better not ever resign anything from Harvard.
Yeah.
Homeschool college. All right. Geraldo,
Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Geraldo, we watched you when there was that terrorist attack, and your daughter was over there in France. There was another terrorist attack last night. President Trump called it terrorism, said it looks like terrorism. Got a lot of backlash from the mainstream media.
Also this morning, President Trump has just tweeted out in the last hour another terrorist attack in Paris. The people of France will not take much more of this. We'll have a big effect on the presidential election. So a gunman with apparently an AK-47 went up, killed a cop. The gunman also killed as well. And then Donald Trump, the President of the United States, during that press availability, John Roberts, our correspondent, asked him about the attack, and he said it looked like terror. And he was right, turns out to be, but then, you know, it's almost as if the mainstream media was like, well, he can't say that until it's official.
Well, I think the mainstream media and the President of the United States have such a bitter and hostile relationship that very little truth, very little light is shed. I think the President was absolutely right. Going back to what Ainsley said, as soon as I heard it was Paris again, it's so personal. A year ago, my middle daughter, Simone, junior year abroad, caught in the stadium in Paris when a suicide bomber outside tried, and 2 colleagues tried to use their bombs to penetrate the stadium. It was the big soccer game between Germany and France.
Turns out one of them lost their nerve, and they could have been worse.
It was, but Brian, it's something that, beginning with Charlie Hebdo, which I also covered, it is something that has made of France almost a personal thing. Now, people like us that live in Manhattan, or people who work in Manhattan, we remember 9/11 as almost a personal insult, and it's a mass grave of our friends and families downtown. I feel in a similar, obviously smaller way, because Simone did suffer that personal threat from terrorism in Paris. The President was absolutely right. I mean, at some point, when you have... Now, I think that unlike the Fresno, California, black nationalist guy who shot and killed 3 people, only white people, has a history of black nationalism, and only in the back of the police car did he use the words Allah Akbar. I think in that case, there was this terrorism, or was this a deranged racist? I think that is a fair question. But when Donald Trump assessed the evidence, as I did, and remember, I'm talking in real time, I thought it was clear that it was a terrorist attack. And I also thought, what in the world is this going to be? What impact will this have on the French elections? Because will this propel? I'll tell you a very quick story. In 2004, I was at the opening of the Clinton Library in Little Rock. John Kerry had just been defeated by George W. Bush. I'm talking like not even 2 weeks after the election. Rainy day in Little Rock, we were in one room together, and he was very morose, John Kerry. You might think he'd be morose, losing. You know, he had a very low regard for George Bush at that time. He couldn't believe he lost. And he said, you know why I lost? He told me privately, you know why I lost? I lost because of that terror attack. This is like during the week. I lost during that terror attack over the weekend. I had it up until that terror attack, and I lost it because people don't like changing horses in midstream. They like the conservative. They like the person who is going to fight terrorism. And I really think that this will help Marie Le Pen, the hard right nationalist, in France,
because she's
if
about
she plays her card.
She's about borders.
And she's also talked so much about immigration, although I'm not sure this is an immigrant. This may be a French-born suspect, but he was on the extremist watch list in France. But I think the president, to sum up, I think President Trump was absolutely right to use the T word. It was terrorism. I think that it will, if things are played out right, help Marie Le Pen. And I would even heed calls, as they did after 9/11, to postpone the mayoral race here long ago, I would heed a call to hold off on the president's race in France just to let the things simmer down.
And here's why, Geraldo. Since 2015, they've had multiple attacks, have been in a state of emergency. Who would stop another attack in between? And I'm just saying this. Is that how many times do we hear about an attack and we find out that this guy was on somebody's list or was being surveilled and they just didn't have enough evidence for him? When it comes down to it, fundamentally, we elect leaders to keep us safe to the best they can, and this political correctness is playing a role in every sector.
I get that. The only defense I would make for France is that, unlike here, we've got like 10 people on the watch list. They've got like 10,000 people on the watch list.
Then it's not a watch list.
You know why?
They don't have.
You know why?
We can't watch.
You know why?
We can't watch this. We wish we could watch these guys.
But Geraldo, it's because they have so many, they're open borders. You can travel freely. And that's what the president is saying he wants to prevent. We have Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, and General Kelly, Department of Homeland Security, down there on the border yesterday talking about this very thing, saying it's not just about drug cartels, keeping them out of our country, it's keeping terrorists out. So this doesn't happen here.
Well, I absolutely agree with you, Ainsley. I mean, France has received tens of thousands of refugees due to the Syrian civil war and other disruption in the Middle East. Borders in France are a real issue. Borders in the United States were a real issue this time around. I think that you could argue correctly that Donald Trump would not be president today but for this issue. Now we hear from the president and Kelly and so forth that there have been far more apprehensions on the border, that fewer people are trying our border.
Good.
So all I would say, I say good. I say God bless. I want an orderly border, but if this tough talk is working to cut, I saw illegal penetrations of the southern border by 70%. I heard 40, so 40 to 70%. You start thinking,
do we need the wall? That's what you're thinking.
Free wall, 25 billion minimum.
Well, it's a combination of both.
25 billion.
Combination of both, because you're not always going to have that general there.
And the general said yesterday it is essential to build the wall, and we will build the wall moving forward by the end of the summer. But also yesterday,
how are we going to fund it?
That's going to be key in the next couple of weeks.
Meanwhile, the political left is talking about, well, you know, these Republicans are so heartless. Look at the case of this dreamer, this 23-year-old dreamer by the name of Juan Montez. And he was deported. And you know, if you have DACA status, and he did, you can't be deported. However, General Kelly was on last night with Martha McCallum on First 100 Days, and she asked him about him, and as it turns out, this guy has got some trouble in his past. Listen.
You would expect someone that was here under the DACA rules to be extra special cautious in terms of getting crosswise with our laws. He didn't, so he's gone.
He went on to say at a press conference, the illegal actions, apparently he had several convictions, he was driving without a driver's license, shoplifting, and he left the United States without permission, and that's when he got caught climbing the fence in Southern California to come back in.
I have to say that I urge my friend the president to tread lightly when it comes to the dreamers. This guy was a shoplifter. I don't know. Did you ever shoplift, ladies and gentlemen? People here in the studio, did you ever shoplift like one time? Is it going to wreck your whole life?
Maybe when you took gum when you were 2 years old.
Wreck your whole life? All right, you go through it, you get done. You go through it, you get done.
Yeah, but if you are a dreamer, there are special requirements. You've got to follow the law. He did not.
But contrast this. Okay. All right, you got that kid there, dreamer now, and now you've had this controversial issue. I thought you were going to leave the dreamers around here. You're touching the dreamers, and it makes this issue. Why not focus your attention at MS-13? It's so brilliant. In Bryanstown, or near Bryanstown in Long Island, you had how many kids? A couple of kids, 4 kids now murdered. You have these people with tattoos on their faces. I mean, you know who MS-13 is. Use conspiracy laws to get them out there.
They're going after those guys.
Use RICO laws to get them out there.
They're going after felons.
You know, let's use our vaunted surveillance to go after these organized criminals. I think that with tough talk on the border, you cut down on the avocado picker and the homemaker, home cleaner that cross. They say, oh, I'm not going to try this. That's a great recipe. Then you go after the real hard-nosed people that every everybody wants out. Even
But
even
Geraldo,
the civil rights
doing what
activists want them out.
would you recommend? It's as if the president said exactly what you said. Every once in a while, there's going to be something that's somewhat controversial or worth talking about with this one guy. But for the most part, the Dreamers can stay, and conservatives are angry about that.
Well, see, what you just said, I would love to hear come out of the president's mouth.
We basically said the Dreamers are the hardest thing for me to deal with.
He has, and stress that compassion. I'm sorry.
It's the only Dreamer, though, that has been deported, and the only reason
as far
is
as I
because
know.
he
That's
broke
why
the
I
rules,
haven't raised.
Geraldo.
That's why I haven't raised hell about it.
Well, I think the headline is, if you are in this country and you have DACA status, don't break the laws and you'll be fine.
Don't even walk against traffic.
Don't break the laws. I mean, consider it a privilege. Thank the president for it. Keep your nose clean, straight and narrow, work hard.
Guess what's happening, Geraldo? Guess what's happening? Slowly, incrementally, we're getting immigration reform because the hardest thing is being done first, bolstering the borders. When we have a debate now, the debate will be with half the debate shelved because the president made the hard decision, and the general, an apolitical figure, is making it look like a law and order thing, not a political thing.
I love the way you frame the issue. Now you avoid only the practical obstacle of funding the wall. Will government shut down by a deficit funding of the wall?
Schumer says yes.
But I have to say that the Republicans have to rally if they believe in this wall, rally and give the president enough authorization to fund it. That's where the rubber meets the road. Do you have the money to build this wall or not? I mean, that's
going to be the big story next week. All right.
Geraldo,
I think I'll be here next week.
Did you shoplift?
That
is the headline I'm walking away with.
Let me tell you a story. I remember.
You have 10 seconds.
10 seconds. I remember one time my dad called me to the police station in Suffolk County. There was a 55 Oldsmobile the cops had. And he called me, and my friend Frankie DiCecco's father called him. So I met Frankie and his father, me and my dad there. And there was the 55 Oldsmobile, and we had taken the tires off the 55 Oldsmobile. And we were trying to put them on our own car, but they didn't fit. So we didn't put them back on the Oldsmobile.
Stealing tires,
so my dad was there.
That's not shoplifting.
My dad looked at me, and he said, "You have embarrassed the Rivera name." I was so hurt, embarrassed, humiliated that I never committed another crime.
Because he was mad that you picked the wrong size tires?
He said, how could you pick a 14-inch when you should have been a 15?
Exactly.
Use your head. What's the matter with you? Grand Theft Auto Tires, Mr. Geraldo Rivera. All right.
That's a great
How could you not eyeball that?
It's like I go to the shrink every Friday.
No kidding.